Hello, I'm here with my grandma Spaulding. We're here to talk to her about the war and September 11th and what she's gone through those times. So, Grandma,
Yes.
can you tell us a little bit about your history and what you've gone through your life?
Well, I was born in 1917. There's been quite a bit of things that I've gone through. The Big Depression, and then World War II, and then all the following wars. So, I don't know, just what do you want me to say?
Can you tell us about the day Pearl Harbor was attacked?
Oh, I'll never forget the day Pearl Harbor was attacked, because we were just all sitting around the table eating, and the radio was on, and all at once it came over about them attacking Pearl Harbor. And we were all just flabbergasted, because even though we knew there was a lot of conflict going on, we didn't ever imagine anything would happen like that.
Okay, so can you tell us what September 11th was like December 2nd?
Honey, an awful lot like the World War II was, because you just didn't expect it, and you were just flabbergasted, and you had to wonder why God let anything happen like that.
So, how were you and your family involved with the war effort?
Well, my husband worked at a company that they were exempt from going to war because they were making products that the services needed. I had two nephews that was in. One was overseas in Guatemala, and the other one, I believe, was in just France and England and maybe Germany. But I don't know.
Okay, so what kinds of things did Americans do to support the troops?
Well, like I told you, that there was so many men that had to go, and there was still work had to be done in all the factories. So that is when a lot of women went to work for the first time, because it wasn't very common for a woman to work in a factory. But at that time, they had to, because there was such a shortage of men, and they still had to make all this stuff that the services needed. So.
Okay. So, what personal sacrifices did you and your family make during the war?
Well, it was a hardship in a way, and still it could have been much worse, because there were so many shortages of things, and the government issued, I think, here, so you went to a ration book, and you would have to go and sign up for it. Now this one is for my little daughter that was 6 years old at the time, and they wanted to be sure that the ration book was for that purpose, because it gives here that she was 3 foot 8 inches tall, she weighed 50 pounds, she had blue eyes and light colored hair, she was a female and 6 years old, and there was all kinds of stamps. We had to have a ration book for sugar, for meat, for gasoline, to get tires for your car. So there was a lot that went on. So.
Okay, so how did you receive news about the battlefront?
Well, by radio or newspaper, because there was no television at that time. See, that's the difference between September the 11th and the World War II, because at that time you couldn't see what was going on. But for September the 11th, the television was on all day long and just showing you everything.
Okay. So, like, in your own opinion, what kind of leader was Franklin Roosevelt?
Oh, he was a wonderful leader. You know, he had had polio before he became president, but no, he was a good leader. And I think that he was very ill towards the end of the war, because I'll never forget that my mother was in the hospital and she was dying. And all at once, all the whistles and all the bells started ringing, and it announced that the war was over. And my mother said, well, Eddie and Bill can come home now. That was the two that were nephews that were in the service. And she died that night.
Okay, for the people who are out there that don't know what polio is, do you know what polio is?
What polio is? Well, that's a very bad sickness. You aren't able to walk or anything. So many people died. It was a big epidemic of it. Just, well, I imagine just a few years before President Roosevelt, and that's when he got it. So, no, polio is a very severe illness that left you crippled. You couldn't walk or anything. Okay. Now, President Roosevelt was a wonderful leader, and he was one that started, well, he had polio, and you would think that he would be a very handicapped person, but he wasn't. He couldn't walk because of the polio, and it affects the lower part of a person's body. But he was always so cheerful, and well, there was just so many things that he did for everybody. There was a work thing started that was called WPA. They would put men to work that could not get work anywhere. They would build things. I can remember over at Columbus that my brother worked on the WPA, and they were building, I think it was the big thing, what do you call the football players where you sit?
Ohio Stadium.
Yeah, at Ohio State, but they were building the stadium. And it was just different things like that that he had to do that was just made everybody feel so much better. But then, just right at the end of the war, I don't imagine we had very many days in it left that he died, and Vice President Truman became the president then.
Okay. So, what were like the professional sports back then?
Well, you know, most of our men, as far as professional sports, were in the service. There was still some older men that had baseball teams, or they played different things, but we also had women. Women weren't the hopeless and helpless things then. They could do most anything they set their minds to, and it was good to go watch a good baseball game, all women.